Okay, here we are on the AD root machine. The thing that we're talking about and you've been doing is in order to create an OU, and I want to create an OU, if I can find it, there it is. Create an organizational unit, call it demo, and then look at the policies. When we do this by default before the group policy management console is installed, and I'll do that here in a minute, we'll go into group policies, and we don't have one. We need to do a new policy, and we'll call it demo. If I went into add, what add allows me to do is to add existing policies, of which there are none on this machine. But you notice that I could, if I wanted to, because we have all this trust business, I could add the policy from a different domain. Probably not the recommended way to do that. That's when you could get into the slow links business. But you can add an existing policy that is already there. That's what the add does for you. I'm not going to do that. We're just going to make our new one. The new, and we'll look at the policy here. The properties of the policy, links, security is where we go to allow users to do things to the objects themselves. Full control, authenticated users get read and apply group policy. If I wanted to change that, let's say that I had a user that I don't, but I only wanted that policy to apply to that user. This is where I would manage that. I could go in here and uncheck the apply. Now authenticated users can read the policy, but they're not going to get the policy. And then I would go into the add and go to somewhere else. Let's just do something. Let's do like administrator, D-M-I-N. Let's see if this will do it for me. Check names, and this is a shortcut. Administrator who already has it. I don't have any other users on this one. If you type the entering characters of a user object or whatever object you're trying to get and click on the check names, it should give you a list so that you don't have to type the whole thing in there. If that doesn't work, if you go into advanced and use the find now, it'll give you a listing of all of your users and groups. Say again? Yeah. Okay, yeah, and you can do that. So, and then the options here, well, right here is, we talk about block inheritance policy. We can block policy inheritance right here, which means that we're not going to allow this one to be inherited. Options, no override, disable, the group policy object is not applied to this container. Block inheritance blocks inheritance because we're on the demo container on the container. But the no override prevents other group policies from overriding a policy set in this one, which means that if I created a policy in this container and then created a child OU, I would block their no override for my policies. So we can configure all of that stuff up front here. If I want to change what the policy does, we'll go into Edit, Window Settings. The security policies, the security policies are basically the ones, the audit policy and all that are the local policies. The local policies you get on the local computer are the local security policies. So we have those here, audit policy, and notice that again, most stuff is, like everything is, not defined, just because I put it down here. The default is not defined for everything. If I wanted to, we might as well look at those audit log-on events. We could go in here and turn it on for successes or failures. Privilege use, successes or failures, all of these things for successes or failures. User rights assignments. If I wanted to allow certain things to happen, create a token, create a page file, deny access to this computer from the network, deny log on as a batch, deny log on locally. I could go in here and say, I don't want these guys logging onto this server, onto this machine locally. And remember that servers, by default, don't allow ordinary users to log on locally. So the rights are there. Security options, these are where you get into, do we want to allow users to shut down? Do we want to allow users to put flash drives in to install things like that? This is where all of those things can be configured. In some cases you want to turn it off, some cases you want to turn it on. The government turned it off for everybody because they were having too many WikiLeaks going out in flash drives, I guess. The users have similar settings but different, and I know that on that, was it the last test you did some Internet Explorer stuff. We can put in connection. If we wanted to do a proxy, we'll go in here, proxy, enable a proxy, use the same proxy server, and we could configure this to be whatever we want it to be for the proxy, obviously. User agent, connection settings, automatic browser configuration.
And that's where you would put like an address you don't want it to go to, correct?
That you don't want to use the proxy for. Yes.
Like that allows you to go around the proxy, right?
Yes. Yes, those addresses. The ones do not use the proxy for this one, that means that it won't use the proxy to go to those addresses. You have to either put in the fully qualified domain name and or the IP address. If people are using the fully qualified domain name, www.yahoo.com, and you put its IP address in, it's going to ignore www.yahoo.com. It's going to be looking for the IP address.
So you're saying that if you basically have it blocked, say Yahoo blocked,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to allow certain people to be able to do it, you can do it right here.
If I blocked it in a proxy, yes.
If your proxy was blocking Yahoo,
Yes.
you can go in here and tell
Absolutely.
this to go around.
Yeah, and then we could apply that policy to only certain users. Sure. Hey, that's the way I get around Facebook, huh?
You know what I used to do when I was at Berkeley? We had a bunch of stuff blocked
Uh-huh.
through WebSense.
Yeah.
Just log on to AOL, and they let everything go through. You just use their browser.
Yeah. Because a lot of these things, it's the same thing. What do these policies apply to? What policies do Internet Explorer policies apply to? How about Internet Explorer? What about if somebody's running
Netscape.
Firefox, Netscape? Does it apply to Firefox? No. Applies to Internet Explorer. So why would you might want to keep certain, and you might or might not, why might you want to keep certain applications off your network? If you think they're going to become a security hazard, then that goes back to the block applications, what you might want to do with it.
Isn't it here though where you set your proxy settings, or you don't want, would you want to block?
No, the proxy, what you want blocked is actually configured on the proxy server. This is just the addresses that you don't want to use the proxy to get to.
Correct, okay.
That used to be a kind of a big deal with some of the online course material, particularly online math, one of the online math locations that they had. Just wouldn't work through the proxy.
Is there, do we learn more about proxy and security?
Security, yeah.
Is that what, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll install and configure a proxy. Administrative templates, again, there's no possible way I can go through each of these things. As you can see, there's a whole lot of them. When you need a policy and you say, I think that's there, or at least what I do is I go ask my friend Google. And somebody out there will tell me where it is. And then I can go configure it, how to do it. One of the other things that they talked about in there was the group policy management console. True? And I think that it's on. We'll see if it's on. Yep, group policy management console. It's got some other stuff in here. What you want is the gpmc.msi. Since it's got an MSI, we could actually configure that via policy, couldn't we? If we wanted to send it to everybody. So we'll finish this thing, and I think it's done yet. It did say it was done, didn't it? It said finish. How do I get to it? Let's see if this works. Cannot find it. Yeah. File, add, remove, snap in. Add. Group policy management. So we can add it through the add snap ins. It allows you to go down through these different locations, which forests, if we have multiple forests, we could manage our multiple forests from here. Go down through the location. One of the things that it does do, and so here's my demo policy. It puts all the group policy objects in a single location. When I go to the demo domain, this is actually, it says I've selected a link. So this actually links the policy. If I wanted to look at this thing, I could go in here and look at the settings that are in the policy, and the default domain policy shows me everything that's configured in that policy, which to me is a really handy thing to do. It's a really handy thing for me because I can grade your test where you set policies this way. That's why I always ask you to put it on at the end of those tests. Simplifies things. So we can look at those things, tell us what's in there. If we want to change it, edit the policy, we go back to the console that you're familiar with. So while we're here, one of the things I told you I'd show you how to do is how to put on an application, how to do an application policy. So let's do that. What was the first thing that we needed for an application? A network shared folder. And I think that handily enough in here. Oh, yes, see. I thought handily enough in here. Yes, on the C drive we have a distro folder. And in that distro folder we have a whole bunch of applications. So to do it, I'm going to right click on it and share it. Share this folder, distro, permissions, read to everyone. I typically just leave that one. So we'll call it distro. Now then, can I see that folder? And what is this one? This is AD root. So what we call this? Forgot what I call the machine. Computer name, root. // root. And I have the distro folder. That's going to come in because I'm going to need that in a few minutes. So the share's working, and that's what I was just checking to be sure I could actually see the share.
When you typed in the computer name because it's on the network, it pulled up everything that you could share with sharing?
Everything is shared, yeah, yeah. And I used the NetBIOS name.
But you know what?
What?
It's showing with the little hand there.
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to show the little hand there.
But
Huh?
when you looked at it in the root, it doesn't show that it's a share.
When I looked at it through the share, no, because the little hand's on the local file system, not on the share.
Right. So that lets you know that you're actually
Sharing
it.
it.
And you're providing.
You're providing it. You're sharing it. Yeah. That's what the little hand's about. So if I want to, I shouldn't have closed that, should I? Administrative tools, Active Directory users and confusers, and let's go back to my demo. Properties, group policy. Notice that I have a different look here because before I just had that policy in there, I could edit it. Once you install the group policy management console, it's installed for all of your editing functions. So that's what this is going to now open is the group policy management console. Now I can go into my group policy and let's change the demo. Edit, we get back to the one that, again, that we're familiar with. The software settings is where we apply the software policies, and I'm going to do one for users and one for computers. So the computer, we'll right-click on it, New, Package. Notice that the default, which some of you used when you did it, the policy on the last test, is the C drive. That ain't going to work. Because if I want to install this on a computer, it's going to look on the C drive, on the computer you're trying to install it to. Are those files there? Not unless you copy them there. So where do we want to go? To that share. So let's see if we can get there. / root. There's my distro folder. Let's put Wireshark on. Wireshark MSI. I can assign or I can use advanced, and I'll use advanced here. Notice the published grayed out. Why is published grayed out? Because it ain't a user, you can only publish to users. We can only assign to computers. Advanced, let's use the advanced just for the heck of it. You guys want to be advanced, right? And then we won't use advanced the next time. And it doesn't, if you don't use the advanced, you can still get to what's there after you've installed it. Okay, and then we'll wait here for a few minutes. The advanced opens this window so that we can look into here, assign, uninstall this application when it falls out of the scope of management. That was one of the options. It's not enabled by default. You have to enable that. And a bunch of the other stuff here is grayed out. Ignore language when deploying it. Make this 32-bit x86 application available to Windows 64-bit machines. Upgrades, and this is the upgrade. If we had an upgrade, we would add it here. I don't have one, so we're not going to add it there. Categories, if we had categories, we would select them here. Modifications, this is where the MST files would go. And then security, what are we going to do with this thing? Who has permission? We've got read. Authenticated users have the ability to read this package. So now we have Wireshark. If I hadn't done the advanced, if I just right-click on it and do the properties, I get the same options. Pretty easy, isn't it? What's the key? You got to get to the share.
Will that be automatically assigned to everybody's computer when they log on?
No, only to the computers that are in the demo OU.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Not when they log on. This is a computer policy. When you start any computers that are in that OU, it'll automatically be installed. Now then, let's do a user, and we'll try to maybe do a little bit more. Let's do a new package for a user. Notice that when I go here, I'm actually distro on root. It remembers the last location, so you don't have to go through the / root or the / whatever the computer name is again. It's already there, but be sure you check to see that you're on a share and not in the local directory structure. Do the drop down and we can see that we're clearly on the share here. So we did that. Let's do Notepad++ for the users again. And here we have the option to publish, assign, or advanced. Let's use published because we already looked at the advanced. There wasn't anything mystical about it. The only thing it did was open this window that we can open anyway. Publish, golly. Now then, any users that are in the demo OU will get that in their add remove programs whenever they log on so that they can install it through the add remove programs. If we wanted to go in and do those other things, we could do it here. Automatically install by file extension activation, uninstall when it falls out of the scope. Do not display this package in the add remove programs if you wanted to do that. If you wanted them to not know it was there, and they do some things that, okay, but why? If you didn't want them to know it was there, but if they happen to double click on a file that would use that one, then you could not show it and then enable the double click. I don't know. That you can come up with your own scenarios. The same options are there for that one. So that's the way that we do those. And we did all the steps, didn't we? you already had the MSI. You didn't have to go make the MSIs. A lot of stuff still now comes with MSIs. If you want to do Java, go to Google. It is a matter of installing Java on one computer and then going to where it made its temp files, which it doesn't undo, and finding the MSI file that it created to do the actual install. Every one of these things are different. Some of them have them, some of them don't. If you want to do OpenOffice, once you unzip OpenOffice, it's got an MSI file, for instance. But that's the thing that you really need to install via policy is an MSI file. If there's an application like Wireshark that doesn't create one, go get the WinLE install and make your own MSI file. There are questions about policies and how you configure them and how you deploy applications. The key to applications is, one, you got to have the share, and two, you got to go to the share when you do the application. If you get a situation that a machine says it's installing an application and it does it in about 3.5 seconds, and you don't see anything really happening because you know that there's got to be some files copied, probably going to be that you configured the policy but you pointed to the local directory structure and it doesn't know what to do. It just says, okay, I did it. Oh yeah, one other thing we wanted to look at, result set of policy. We can do either a group policy modeling or a group policy result. The modeling is, I want to model some policy. Here's what I want to do with these things. If I want to find out what the actual results are, we go to the users, and let's just, since this is the only user and the only computer, we'll just go and do this one. Shouldn't take very long because there's not a whole lot there. When we go in here, settings, we have settings, policy events, and the summary. The summary show all shows me which policies are applied, and if you have multiple policies, it'll show you the policies and tell you which one is the winning policy. So you can see what's actually happening in the policy application here. The other one here is settings. We can show all of the settings that are on this one, and these are the defaults. The default for a domain controller is 24 passwords, remember 42 days. Minimum, the things that we've looked at, and if you went back and looked at those, these would be the policies that you'd find because I haven't changed anything, obviously. All right, here we go. Winning group policy object, default domain policy is the only one. If you have multiple policies, and hey, this stuff's not applying the way I think it should, use this and see which is the winning policy. And you may find that you've got to reorder them. I only have one policy in any of these, so it's not a matter of, actually we could see those things. Well, why did I do that? Got to open it back up. Demo, we only have the one. Let's link an existing policy here just for the heck of it. 1, 2. When I talk about the order, the default domain policy would be applied, and then the demo policy would be applied. The demo policy, the number one policy, the number one in priority in this thing.
So it works from
bottom up. Remote access policies work from the top down. Group policies work from the bottom up. Questions? Now then, questions, no questions. Great. So everybody's going to get 100 on the final when you do this stuff. That's super.